Hello, my name is Keaton Cox and I'm going to teach you about opinion writing. So opinion writing is very important and I feel passionate about it, and we're going to look at it in this short time that we have together. So I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see everything that I see. And we're starting with this, the 3 key takeaways for the lesson. So the first kind of key and learning aim is to understand what is the purpose of opinion writing and why it's important. I also want us to look at some of the persuasive techniques that will really help you to sound convincing. And then I also want us to make sure that we understand how to structure our argument and how to structure our opinion writing. So the first thing is about the purpose of opinion writing. So opinion writing is about presenting a viewpoint. You're trying to convince your readers, you're trying to convince them that your viewpoint is valid, and you're going to give them reasons. It's not enough to say, it's because I think so. That's not enough. You have to give them reasons about why. But also you need to provide some solutions, things that can be done to actually change things. So the purpose of opinion writing, it really is threefold. You want to convince your readers or your listeners, if you're part of a debate and a speech. You want to give them reasons and reason with them so that you sound logical. It's not just because I said so. And you want to instigate change. You want to provide some solutions that show that you are willing and you understand change. So that's the first learning aim, really, to understand the purpose. I think it's really important because your voice matters. So if you have some viewpoints and you can convince people with good reasons about change, you might be able to influence your school. You might well be able to get yourself that dream job and influence your employer or become your own employer. You may well be able to convince people as a leader in your job that your way is the right way because it's reasoned and you can explain why change is important. And then also, because we live in a democratic society, you're going to be able to influence change, perhaps in policies and in politics. So it's really important that you understand that your voice matters. And so opinion writing is really important for your studies at school, but it's also important for later life. Right, let's talk about persuasive techniques then. Let's talk about some of the things that you need to see and understand, you need to use so that your opinions sound really convincing and so that people can see how passionate you are. The first one is, let me go back. So the acronym here, or the mnemonic here, is deforest. It's a way just to remember that you can make your way clear, and we can see the wood for the trees. We can use deforest for persuasive techniques. The first one begins with D. It's direct address. I call it implicit agreement. It means you're kind of making people agree with you because you're directly addressing them and say, we all know that this is wrong. We all know that this is right. I'm sure you'll agree with me. I'm sure you'll agree with me. You're addressing them directly, whether it's a speech and you've got an audience in front of you or it's a reader. So direct address is really good. It's quite persuasive because you're kind of forcing them or implying that they agree with you already. The A in deforest is for anecdote. Now, we all love stories and we remember stories more than facts sometimes. So stories are used as evidence. Now, anecdotes can be personal. You could say, I remember, or my cousin, or they could be wider than that. You can say one family, or an anecdote could be a story that is well known, like a case in the media. And they're really good for getting your opinions across and sounding convincing. The F in deforest is facts. So it's proof, ways that you can prove your point. So when you think about facts, you must think about things like the Guinness Book of Records. So the largest, the most, the worst. You're giving them factual information. And this is part of sounding reasoned, sounding logical. It's not just, I think this. You're giving reasons and you're supporting your ideas, your viewpoints with factual evidence. Then another technique that's persuasive is O. The O in deforest is for opinions. Your own opinion is fine, but when you get the opinion of experts, then you sound really convincing. So the research shows might be a way of talking about expert opinion, or it might be experts in charities like Childline, or it might be experts in educational establishments like the University of Oxford. Now, the R in DeForest is for two things. It's repetition, and it's also rhetorical questions. Rhetorical questions, I call them statement questions. So when your parents say, what time do you call this? They're making a statement about how late you are. They don't want you to say, well, actually, it's 3 a.m., Mum. It's 3 a.m., Dad. It's not supposed to be answered because it's giving a statement. Why would we bother to do this at school? It's not really asking a question. It's making a statement saying that particular thing that people are still doing at school is useless. So why is our nation still buying plastic bags? It's a statement question. It's a rhetorical question. It doesn't want you to answer it. It's just making a statement that the plastic bags aren't a good idea, particularly for the ocean. Then the E in DeForest is exaggeration, over the top language, and even humor. So the example I've got there is, it's worse than having 1,000 hot pokers in your eye. It's exaggeration, it's over the top language. It's not really taken literally, but you're making a point forcefully. This is quite a good persuasive techniques because you're making a point forcefully and possibly you're adding humor at the same time. The S in DeForest is statistics. So it's about statistical number data. So it's like facts, but you're adding numbers. 50% of children under 13, 1 in 3, 8 out of 10. So it's statistical. It sounds persuasive because, like I was saying, it's adding evidence rather than just I think it's right. And then the T in DeForest is triplets. You might have heard it as the rule of 3. Politicians use this all the time in speeches. So, for example, it's not fair, it's not healthy, it's not kind. So something like that, maybe for Bullying Week. And then maybe it might be just a triplet of words, sometimes alliterative, like depressing, distressing, disheartening, all those Ds. So it's 3 things, 3 adjectives, or 3 kind of sentences that are parallel to make your forceful point. So that is about persuasive techniques. That's the second learning aim, if you like, that we were looking at. Then lastly, and definitely most importantly, is about shaping an argument. When I talk about argument, I'm just talking about that when you sound reasoned. It's not, oi, what are you looking at? It's not that kind of argument. It's when you give your viewpoint and you're giving reasons and explaining what you think and explaining what the change or why the change is necessary. So there are 3 points. First of all, it's a 3-part structure. There's the introduction, you grab their attention, the main body where you have all your main ideas, and the conclusion when you tie it up together. But within the main body, there are 3 things to remember. You've got your because, you're going to give your reasons and explain your reasons with examples. You've got your but, where you're sounding balanced. You're going to understand the other side of the argument, the counter argument. And then you've got your so, when you can talk about some of the solutions. So you've got your introduction, your main body, and your conclusion. And in the main body, you've got your because section with your reasons. You've got your but section with a counter argument. You've got your so section giving solutions. So visually, it would look something like this. It would look something like that. You've got your introduction. And in your introduction, I say, have your say. You can use statistics, anecdote, and you can pose a question. So say in the introduction. And then, like I was saying, 3 main parts. In the blue box, because, your reasons why you agree or disagree. In the purple box, your counter argument, understanding other people's side, but really forcing your side even more. In the kind of pink box, the so, the solutions, and in the green box at the bottom, your summary, your conclusion. Okay, so we're going to go through each of the 5 kind of boxes, sections in a bit more detail. Okay, looks like that visually. Introduction, the main body, and conclusion. So we're going to look at a debate question. This is the statement. Trying to keep up with fashion is a waste of time. So you're going to write a speech as part of the debate. So you're going to either agree or disagree. You're going to be for or against this statement. Now, I'm old. I'm a parent. So, of course, I'm going to disagree with this statement, and my kind of speech, the speech I'm talking you through, structuring your argument, is all about disagreeing. But when you finish this this lesson, when you finish this, then you can have a go at writing it yourself. You can agree with me and say, no, keeping up with fashion is a waste of time. Or you can write the other side of the argument, that keeping up with fashion isn't a waste of time. Okay, so we're thinking about the structure, the three-part structure, the introduction, the main body, and the conclusion. And also within that, you've got the three different colors. So we'll talk you through how you could shape your speech. So in your introduction, you're going to have your say. You're going to use statistics. You're going to use a story, anecdote. You're going to pose a question. You're going to say, pose a problem or a question. In the main body, you're going to have the because, your reasons, the but, the counter argument, and then the so, and then your conclusion for this whole idea about fashion. So in your introduction, you might start with statistics like this. Did you know that an estimated 140 million pounds, that's around 350,000 tons of used clothes going to landfill in the UK each year? So this is a shocking statistic to really grab the reader's attention or the listener's attention at the start of your speech. Okay, then you might use an anecdote. Personal anecdote like this. Last year, I wasted 8 precious hours of my time in a claustrophobic high street shop looking for something to wear for an awards ceremony. The ceremony was 45 minutes long. So you can see that the anecdote is kind of using exaggeration and humor as well. And then you're going to pose, let me ask you, are you constantly trying to keep up with fashion, obsessed with what you're going to be wearing tomorrow? So can you see in the introduction, you're already getting your viewpoint across that keeping up with fashion is a waste of time. It's useless, it's pointless. You're already doing that. You're having your say in the introduction before you really get into the main body. Okay? Then you've got your because section. You're going to give evidence. Now, sometimes students struggle and think, right, what am I going to write? What am I going to write in my because section? What reasons? And I thought maybe something like seed, and we'll talk through seed, might help you to try to think about reasons for why you think what you think. So the reasons might be social. How do they affect society? How do they affect relationships? Maybe how do they affect families? So for fashion, thinking about fashion all the time makes us more judgmental. We compare what we're wearing. We judge people just by what they look like. How does it affect relationships? Well, it makes people more competitive, doesn't it? And it makes people more selfish because they're thinking about themselves and what they look like, and if they've got the latest fashion and what other people look like. And then families, maybe it's about the arguments in the families because your mum or your dad or whoever it is you're living at home with is constantly saying you've got enough clothes, but you're wanting to have the latest thing. And it's actually putting a strain on your relationship. So that might be some of the ideas that you're talking about in your because section, and that's the social aspects. What about emotionally? How is it going to affect mental health? Well, maybe if you're constantly thinking about fashion, you're stressed, you're anxious, you're getting frustrated, you're upset, you're distracted. You're not really able to think about what's the now and then, what's going on in front of you in class or your hobbies or, you know, with your family, because you're constantly thinking about what you're going to wear tomorrow, keeping up with the trends. The other E that you might think about when you're building your case, building your argument about why fashion and trying to keep up with fashion is useless is ecological or economics. You're thinking about money aspects and you're saying, is it earth friendly? Well, does it make people richer? Does it make people poorer? How does it affect jobs? How does it affect the environment? Is it eco-friendly? And I can see I needed a full stop after that last question there. So you might say, like I've said about the landfill, people waste clothes, people throw them away, they don't give them to charity shops. They've got things in their cupboards that are bursting at the seams and their wardrobes are overspilling. So it's not a good use of money, it's a waste of money. And then the D might be dangerous. You have to be careful with this kind of argument. Sometimes it gets a bit extreme. Is following fashion going to kill you? I mean, you could go overboard. But maybe you think about, you know, cheap clothes and the toxins in the clothes that we absorb. You might have that kind of argument. Okay, so in that because section, you're thinking about reasons why you can justify, why you can explain what your viewpoint, and some of those reasons might be social, some of them might be emotional, some of them might be ecological or economic, and some of them might be about direct dangers. So that's the C, that's the because section. Let's think about the next bit. This is the but. it's the however, it's the counter argument. You have to sound balanced. You can't just have one way argument. It has to be a two-way argument. So you have to acknowledge the other side. So I understand you're saying, I accept what you're saying to me about fashion. So you might say, I accept and I understand that fashion can be fun. It can be exciting, getting new things. And having that new outfit, it makes you feel fulfilled. It makes you popular sometimes. You put on a handbag or some shoes and people stop talking to you and you connect with people. And celebrities, you follow celebrities, people that you really admire, they wear those things and you want to be like your role models. So you, in this section, you're accepting the other side of the argument, but you're also falsely putting your own. However, so I accept that fashion can be fun, exciting, can make you popular, connect with people. It's helping you emulate your role model. However, it's also making you obsessed, bringing frustration. Maybe it's making you feel worse about yourself. It's actually affecting your self-worth, your self-esteem. Maybe you should be looking at other hobbies, and maybe it's taking your time off of your studies. It's eating time in education. So you're giving the other side. So although it's balanced, you're still putting forward your own argument forcefully. The next section is the so. Therefore, it's the kind of the action, what we're going to do about it. So let's stop judging people. Let's stop shopping. So you're using these imperatives. I call them bossy verbs, telling us what we should do. You're directing or inviting people to do something different, something new. You're acting. You're talking about acting for change. You might also use humor. So something like, come on, no fashion is perfect. I mean, if Cinderella's shoe fit perfectly, then why did it fall off? So you might be using humor at this stage to get people to think about the other side. And I can see I've got a spelling mistake. I put show instead of shoe. Apologies for that. And then you might also have some kind of inspirational words to get people to think about how they act differently, different solutions, different compromises. So you might say something like, peace is more precious than diamonds and silver, said Martin Luther King. And so therefore, let's look at peace and connecting with each other rather than being obsessed with what we wear. So in your solution section, you might be thinking about using imperatives, using humor, using inspiration from other people and other quotes. And so the last thing is the conclusion. And I say, try and put a sick conclusion. I know, terrible, terrible humor is SIC, so summary, imperatives and circularity. Let me try and explain what I mean by that. Summary, so overall, my three main reasons are that it's bad for relationships, it's bad for the environment, it's bad for your pocket. So just summing up what you might say about why you think fashion and keeping up with fashion is a bad idea. Then imperatives, like we used before, let's look into our souls more than we look in mirrors. So it's some kind of call to action, call to change, using these kind of bossy, invitational, directional kind of verbs, language. And then the circularity. So you might begin and end where you started. So if you started with the statistics, so let's make sure that we don't have 350,000 tons, or you might start like, so maybe let's lose our obsession with fashion and we don't have to waste 8 precious hours in stuffy shops looking for clothes that we only wear for 45 minutes. You started with that anecdote about finding that perfect outfit for 45 minutes, 8 hours, and you might end with it. So that's circularity, starting and ending in a similar place. Okay, so as a quick recap, these are some of the things that we talked about for opinion writing. Opinion writing really is about convincing your readers, giving reasons and calling them to change. It's not just, I think this because I'm right. You have to try and sound as if you're justifying it. So that means you're giving an argument, you're giving reasons, you're trying to sound logical, you're trying to convince them of your viewpoints so something changes. We also talked about different techniques. So deforest, trying to use that implicit agreement we all know, using stories and facts and statistics, using those questions that don't ask a question, they're statement questions, rhetorical questions, using exaggeration and humor and triplets to really make you sound forceful and convincing. We talked about how to structure things, the 3-part structure. So your introduction, because, but, and so, and your summary and imperative and conclusion, so your conclusion. And then we also talked about how do you get some ideas? What kind of ways can you get ideas to think about what you think about? So using seed, social reasons, emotional reasons, economic and ecological reasons, and the dangers. So maybe it's your turn now that you've had this lesson to write your speech about why you think that keeping up with fashion or trying to keep up with fashion is a waste of time. So maybe it's your turn to have a go at writing your introduction, doing your because, but, and so sections, and writing your conclusion. I've seen one more typo. Apologies for that for introduction. Maybe it's your turn now to stop to write. So stop the share. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you've understood everything that I've said, and join me next time when we do more for English. I'm Keaton Cox, and I hope you can join me again. Thanks. Bye.